Before we jump into today's episode, please remember this podcast is not therapy and it doesn't replace working with a qualified professional. While I aim to keep things grounded in science and offer a lot of educational insight, the content here should never be generalized. Everyone's experience is different. If you're experiencing any mental or medical distress, please reach out to a licensed provider who can support your specific needs. Welcome back to ADHD Realities. I'm your host, Dr. Leanne Borneman, clinical sexologist, ADHD relationship and sexuality expert. And this is the podcast we talk all things ADHD and sexuality in ways research is still lacking. So join me in today's episode and let's jump in. Welcome back to ADHD Realities. Today, I have an amazing individual in front of me today, and I'm getting to hold space with her, Lauren Elise Rogers. I'm going to let her do all the introductions, but today we're going to get into just women's sexuality. What does it mean for us? And I'm sure the conversation is going to go in a variety of different places. I'm really excited. So please introduce yourself to the listeners today.
Thank you so much for having me. Again, I am Lauren Elise Rogers. I am a certified holistic sexuality educator and an embodied intimacy and relationship coach. And that's a mouthful, but it, I think, feels more authentic to me to say, why am I those things? We'll get into my story a little bit more, but it comes from this desire to understand human sexuality through a holistic lens, which is what took me to school for the sexuality educator part. I am a nerd at heart. I love research, which is how Leanne and I have connected so many times. I love sharing that research on my social media platforms and with my clients around the world. But then, as I was working with individuals and couples specifically regarding overcoming sexual obstacles related to guilt and shame specifically has become my little niche. I found that I wanted more coaching, more pattern recreating, more abilities to write scripts with clients in somatic and embodied ways. So I went back to school and became an embodied intimacy and relationship coach. And now I use all of those tools to help individuals and myself, which is what Leanne and I were saying offline, repair and reclaim and reaccess our inherent sexuality.
That is just freaking amazing. And I'm going to be a self disclosure in today's conversation. And I think that makes me just more human because, like I was telling you before, I feel like in our field, there are so many assumptions that, like, okay, you're a sexual educator. Oh, you're a sex therapist. You're a sexologist. You must have it all together. And, I'll be the first to say that for me, I'm relearning my sexuality as a woman. I'm unlearning all the shame, all the guilt that has caused me to be so disconnected from my pleasure. What does that look like? Feeling safe. And so I really feel connected to the work you do. Because when you say holistic, it is a very like intentional leaning in, vulnerable, scary experience to really discover, what it is when we talk about desire, what it is you want, what does pleasure look like for you. So I can we start where and how we learn all of this shame? I know that's a big, heavy ask,
No,
but go for
yes,
it.
yes, let's go there. Because I think, Leanne, you hit the nail on the head just right off the top, is that I think so many of us want to just become different. Right. We want to go visit an educator. We want the 5 quick tips to orgasm more efficiently or get him to do what you want in bed. And I feel that as a culture, we are really misleading human beings, specifically people in female bodies, because there are so many scripts that shroud us in shame. There are so many stories and narratives that we have existed in for centuries. And it does start early. And I think it is just heaping more shame onto us if we feel that there's something wrong with us because we can't shake off this old way of doing it and use these 5 tips to orgasm more quickly. So I would love to talk about the roots because that is where I start with every single one of my clients. I deeply believe, and research has shown, that there are some specific ages, and those would be 7, 14, and 21. Now, if you grew up in any form of religious orthodoxy or structure, you might also remember that like 7 is this age of understanding. You might have had a first communion or first baptism or a confirmation around 14. It's interesting that we use these ages often in many different spaces. But I want all of your audience to just consider where they were, who was influencing them at around 7, 14, and 21. I cannot tell you how many times I do a complete timeline with my clients, and that is where we start every single time, and how many instances, important, critical, harmful, or eye-opening instances there were at around 7, 14, and 21.
Yeah.
For me, I was deep in a religious space at around 7 years old. I was already the oldest of three children. My family was buying more and more deeply into this headship model of structure inside of a religious system, which is God first, then man, then woman, then children. There was very clearly becoming this message to me that a woman's role was in a house, was as a wife, was as a mother. She was to meet a man's needs.
Yeah.
By 14, I was very much being taught all the purity doctrine and was being told that my body did not belong to me. My body belonged to God and my father. By 21, I was married, and my mother had said on the night before my wedding, take care of your husband's needs and everything will be fine. And then she died of pancreatic cancer. And then we went into a decade-long marriage to a man who is no longer my husband and is now happily gay. 7, 14, and 21 were quite impactful in my life and are
Yeah.
quite impactful in so many people's lives that we can just take a pause and understand the scripts, the voices, the values systems that were influencing what we believed about sex, bodies, the bodies of others, person's role inside a sexual relationship, and so much more.
And it's so interesting. First and foremost, wow to your story, your journey. Like, whoa. Um, and what I think I heard the heaviest was the pressure that you learned, and I resonated with that on the pressure of like what our bodies and our essence are supposed to be about. And like I remember in my because when you said like 7, 14, 21, I was doing my work right there. I was going through my own little reflection, and I remember my father always telling me, you better watch out, guys just want one thing. And I will never forget how much pressure that put on me as a girl. And in that moment I didn't know it, but looking back, the shame, the responsibility that I was just taught that guys just want one thing and that I'm nothing more than a sex piece, right? Like
Yes.
and
You
and,
know,
and go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, and that, yes, I hear this phrase almost weekly. I was also taught the same thing. And it's so interesting because Betty Dodson says that men are conditioned to fear failing sex, right? This idea that they need to be some sex god and know how to go into every sexual container and perform and make her come and all this type of stuff.
Yeah.
Women are conditioned to fear sex itself. And isn't it interesting that yes, men only want one thing? What does that do? That like literally gives you a role of both victim and you need to be your sole defender. You watch out. You be on guard. You defend against and also just kind of men only want one thing.
Yeah. And then we wonder why we're so disconnected,
Yes.
right? For those who are, I'm sure that not this isn't the journey for every woman, but I unfortunately have yet to meet a woman or a female, a vulva owner that grew up in a dynamic where they felt empowered and they
Mhm.
didn't have this area of their life where they're rediscovering their sexuality or trying to find themselves back into it. So that hits deep, and I wonder then also, can would you feel comfortable gauging this topic of porn? Because I know we hear it a lot in our field. There's good and there's bad equally. But when we talk about the messages that we've learned and the sex ed, I would love to hear your navigation with that
Mhm.
personally, with your clients. How do you do that?
Such a good question. And probably one of my deepest, most body-based beliefs is that porn is the downfall of all humanity. That is literally what I was taught. Like it is porn's fault. Okay. Which let's just start there. Because when we take a thing like pornography or visual media that is erotic in nature and point the finger at that. What we are doing is releasing accountability from the human beings that are consuming it in a harmful way or producing it in a harmful way. Okay, so we need to just step back and look through a logical lens first and foremost. Anything can be medicine or poison. People have been creating erotic material since the dawn of time. We have found dildos inside of caves. We have seen sexual etchings on the wall. Bodies are beautiful and meant to be celebrated, and the expression of a being through sexuality is healthy and good. Okay, now it is human beings who can mess it all up. So let me talk about how I view this with clients, because this has been, you and I were sharing off air, that there are still things that we are healing in our bodies. And I need to be completely honest, and I am with my clients too. This is one of the deepest for me, because there is so much conditioning that this was the sole most harmful thing against the structure of marriage. Okay, so porn, yes, can be incredibly harmful. Why? Because so much of our mainstream porn is male gaze centered. All right. So I talk about this a lot online because the way that people with penises and people with vulvas consume erotic material is very different. When a person in a male body consumes pornography, what research shows that he is observing and enjoying is the delight, the expressed delight on the person with the vulva's face, body, eyes, just their joy, which actually is like the sweetest, most wholesome thing in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. So he is enjoying her joy. Interesting, right? Because when we ask people with vulvas, people in female bodies, to share with us what they are watching inside of pornography, they are also watching the person in the female body. So interestingly enough, when it is not female-centered, feminist ethical porn, they are consuming this as like a lesson. Oh, I must need to do that. I must need to enjoy in 30 seconds my tits out in the snow, giving a
Yeah.
blowjob with my knees in the freezing cold, and no one's attending to any of my sexual body. No, right? What is interesting is that in our culture, pornography has become our main form of sexuality education.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not education, it is entertainment. What I love to compare it to is, can you imagine if no one in this culture was given driver's ed or behind the wheel instruction or the amount of hours that you need to spend with a parent in the car before you are able to be licensed to drive a 2-ton vehicle? But
Mm.
instead, you were given the Fast and the Furious movies. Can you imagine what our culture would look like, what our roads would look like, if instead of driver's ed, behind the wheel, etc., we gave to teenagers the Fast and the Furious films and said, here you go. Here you go. This is everything you'll need. Or shh, don't talk about driving. No, 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 no. That's not polite to talk about. No, 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 no. You'll just know what to do, right? Oh, just watch out.
Mm-hmm.
Those drivers only want one thing. The one in the red cars, they only want one thing. Watch out.
Yep.
Be careful out there. Okay? Fast and the Furious films are delightful. They are entertainment. They are wonderful. And yet none of us would assume that that's how we are to drive. Why? Because from a young age, we have been coached up on driving. We have witnessed our parents driving responsibly or not. Okay. We have seen the natural consequences. It is out in culture. It is able to be talked about. We, as young people and as adults, are able to clearly differentiate between entertainment and reality. And so that is what I long for as a society, that we would have more sexuality education that is holistic and inclusive and values-based and as a part of our families, that we would embrace it from a young age all the way up into well into adulthood,
Yeah.
that it is a normal, healthy expression of our bodies. But when we use pornography as our sole form of sexuality education, we are going to be way off mark, because the readily available stuff is male centered, phallic centered. Is there ethical, beautiful, feminist driven porn that literally centers the pleasure of people with vulvas? Hell yes, there is.
But you
but
got to
it
go
is hard.
looking for it.
You got to go looking for it. You got to know where to find it. You are going to have to invest your money in it. It is
Hmm.
not free because they are paying these actors, these performers, well, as they should.
Ethical.
Ethical. Look at that, right? It's so funny because when one views that side by side with mainstream, readily available, male centered porn, there is a noticeable difference inside the human body of,
Yeah.
oh, right. And last thing, I'll close it up on this beautiful conversation. I love any feedback from you too, is that I always say, again, with the medicine or poison conversation, the way we use anything in this world, okay, Stan Tatkin calls it the third thing. Okay, the way we engage with the third thing is what is most important. And
Mm,
so if we are using this third thing to avoid hard conversations with our chosen partner, if we are using this third thing to achieve orgasm because we cannot with our human partner in front of us because there is so much guilt and shame about being with another body. If we are escaping or finding ourselves compulsively drawn to this because life is overwhelming and the anxiety that we feel is crushing down on us, and the only time we feel better is when we can have this moment of release inside of an alternate world, and we are finding that our whole entire day is being consumed like that, then we need to look at that behavioral choice because I do believe that anything can be mismanaged
yeah.
and harmful. And
Yeah.
that is not just pornography. That could be food, that could be video games, that could be Netflix, that could be exercise,
Yeah.
that could be alcohol, that could be so many things. And what it shows us as folks in this world is just evidence of something deeper, evidence of something that you deserve to have attention directed towards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
so I'll
think
just close up.
no, that was absolutely beautiful. And yes, I have my little bullet notes here. I think one of the things that really hits the nail on the head is for us to feel confident to explore anything, education, information, and the kindness is needed. I just think of like I know this is like a weird thing that I go to, but I think of like how I interact with my children. My
Yes.
children aren't going to feel safe if my tone is shameful or aggressive. So even how we talk about these things and our tones and how we experience these things, really matter. And I teach human sexuality at a college here in New York. And I say it all the time. In order for us to have empathy for ourselves, we also need empathy for others. And in order for us to even do that, we need to talk about the things that society definitely does say is taboo still. Like it doesn't have to be. And,
Mhm.
one of the things that you had brought up was the study about how men or penis owners who are watching porn and they're concentrating on the female and they get satisfaction from it. I actually was just having a conversation about this with my husband last night because we're exploring our sexuality together, unlearning messages, because we have now found this newfound fun, curiosity, growth in this stage of our life. And I said to him, I was like, what is pleasure to you? And he told me, when I know you're enjoying yourself. I said, but why? Why does that please you? Because it's a beautiful thing, like you said. But I knew something else was at the layer there. And he goes and says, I'm not really sure. I guess because I did a good job. And
Yes.
I said, so you're turned on by knowing that you did your quote, manly duties, that
Yes.
you checked the box and you did not fail. And
Yeah.
he had this moment of, holy crap. Like it was just like eye opening. And that's exactly the thing. And I,
Yes.
I really guarantee that that's why the men and the penis owners in that study
Yes.
find that sexy because it is a representation of I didn't fail. I
Yes.
succeeded. And yes, then
Yes.
the females, the vulva owners looking at that, that's important. That's
Yes.
my job.
this is hitting on Dr. Betty Martin principle, and the wheel of consent is her modality, and it's one of my favorite in the world. And she teaches this, and oh my goodness, you have brought up what way to go, Leanne. What a conversation with your husband. This is huge. But this is what she would teach as an indirect versus a direct route to pleasure. So, an indirect route to pleasure is taking pleasure and enjoyment in another's pleasure. There is nothing inherently wrong with that at all. And it is 100% part of the penis owner conditioning, as we were saying in the very beginning. Okay. He has been conditioned by society, by pornography, to take enjoyment in your pleasure. You didn't fail. Good job, bro. Right? Did she
Yeah.
come? Right? So much of the messaging that we give to people in male bodies surrounds that principle. What Dr. Betty Martin would say is be careful, because an indirect route to pleasure can inadvertently cause pressure on the person who is expected to receive pleasure from you,
Yeah.
because they can feel that they are stuck in this obligatory trap that if I don't experience pleasure, you don't get pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be this almost what we call in the field desire smuggling. I need
Mm.
you to feel good so I can feel good.
It's like parenting in the bedroom.
Right. And so it's really interesting. And so, way to go in naming it. And for him to come to that awareness, like so beautiful. And then what we get to uncouple is indirect routes of pleasure, like that, right? In taking enjoyment from the person in front of us, experiencing the pleasure, and then how to get brave enough, vulnerable enough to experience direct routes to pleasure,
Yep.
which are, right, our felt sensations, which are either accepting of a sexual gift or taking our sexual pleasure in another in consensual way. And when we can start to do that, oh my goodness, the whole conversation changes. Because when we can start to be people and human beings full of integrity enough to admit that we do have sexual wants, then the other gets to decide whether or not they are interested in playing with us in that way.
Yep.
And it becomes so fun. It starts
Yeah.
to go, oh, you're a human being, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
human being, and we can collaborate in this third domain of is that how we want to play? Not, oh God, he's wants sex tonight, and if I don't come, then he's going to feel like a failure, and then what are we going to do?
Yeah. And I think what you're hitting on also is what I like to tell my clients. I'm going to have you unlearn sex so you can learn play.
Yes, yes,
Because
yes,
that is
yes,
exactly what I heard
yes.
right there is like that
Mm-hmm.
second part is play. And what's very interesting is that conversation we had last night also then led to my husband, who I know is totally okay with me talking about this. He was like, okay, but now what? Like, it's like,
Right.
but then I said to him, I was like, babe, like we just created a new slate here. Like it was very exciting, very empowering and liberating when you can lean in and actually recognize the conditioning, recognize you're finally in the driver's seat.
Oh
Like
my
you went
goodness.
from unconscious to conscious. Like you are now in control and now the fun starts, but it also can be very overwhelming because it's like,
Yes.
what do you do? And I think that's now where I'm going to let you spew because, like, what's then the next step for us, right?
Yes. Well, and it's so fun that you said the unconscious to conscious, because I don't know if you do this with clients, but sometimes I remind them of the conscious competency triangle. Okay. And so in this life experience that we have, all of us start out unconsciously incompetent with many things. Okay. We're
I
just
still feel like I'm a
incompetent,
little incompetent.
incompetent with a lot of things. But this unconscious incompetence is fascinating. Okay. So that's at the bottom of the triangle, like the base, right? So driving is the perfect example again. All
Right.
right. When we were little, we were unconscious to the fact that we would ever need to be competent in driving a car because mom and dad are just driving me around. Then we come to a level of conscious incompetence, right? My child is 14 years old right now and very much aware that there is a approaching date of needing to drive. And so sometimes we'll go to a parking lot and I let her sit on my lap, right? We drive around a little bit, but she is consciously incompetent. She knows that. All right.
Mhm.
Then this moment happens that Leanne just had last night where we move into conscious competency and it is fun and we are in the driver's seat and there's work. Okay. So the one
Mhm.
blah, blah, blah is that it is not ease yet. But the cool thing is, through learning and applying and working on sexual skills, because they are like any other skills, they must be practiced. We can move into the final tip top of the triangle, which is unconscious competency. Just like most of us now drive a vehicle. We don't think about when we turn the turn signal on. We don't think about when we press on the brake. We don't think about turning on the windshield wipers. We know unconsciously how to be competent. And yet, I always like to give my clients, like, it's okay. In the same way that
Mhm.
you learned how to be good at sex before, when you've unlearned, it does feel like, whoa, where am I now? I'm in the gray zone, as Jack Moran calls it.
Mhm.
But we can move in and through. We truly can. And love that you brought in play. I would often say it takes, again, with the thirds, a two or more people deciding, you know what, we are going to set aside some times to be curious and playful. What I would use as my go-to is the 3 minute game. Okay. And it sounds like this, and any one of your audience members can play it because what it is doing is uncoupling this idea of service and acceptance, taking and allowing all inside of a playful container and
Mhm.
teaching us that at all times somebody is giving a gift or receiving a gift. And for your husband and you to be able to go, wait a second, there is joy and play and pleasure in all four of these quadrants is, like you were saying, amazing. It starts to give our bodies new neural pathways going forward in pleasure. So the two questions that you ask in the 3 minute game are this. Number one, how do you want me to touch you for 3 minutes?
What if a
So if
person
you,
doesn't know?
so these are good. They take a sacred pause. They take a sacred pause and they could just ask for something that they could try. Okay. In this, I always tell my clients, first step, do no sexual play, like no
Mhm.
genitals off limits. Okay. So if you like your hair braided, you can ask for that. If you like your hair brushed, you can ask for that. If you want a hand massage, ask for that. What is pivotal? Again, like you said, what if you don't know? Then there's some work for you. Like, seriously,
Mhm.
there's some work for you. Go get a massage. Okay. But this is not the time to say, I don't know, whatever you want to do. Nope. This is
Mhm.
centering your
Yep.
want.
Yeah.
It is crucial. That's such a good question because I'll have people go, oh, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
I work with couples all the time. They'll do this in my office. And one of my couples that I've been working with for a year, they're both in service professions, firefighting and nursing, this type of thing. They are both givers. So when we first asked this question, a tear rolled down his eyes
Mm.
because no one had ever asked him that.
Wow.
He was expected to be the doer, the savior, the helper, and he takes great joy from that, and I love it. But what it was yielding is then he was expecting others to do the same for him.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that does not make us people full of integrity. That makes us desire smugglers. So even if it is something tiny, like, can you put my head in your lap and will you just scratch my back?
Mm. I really
Yes.
like that was a good reframe because I'll be honest, I even was going into, okay, for 3 minutes, what do you want? What kind of touch do you want? I didn't go automatically to it. Could be anything and everything. My brain also went to, okay, sexually, sensually, like in that respect. But no, I love that you broke it down because now, like, and I'll be honest, I asked the what if you don't know? Because I am that person. I
Amen.
struggle with decision making because of my ADHD.
Right.
And so this is this barrier where it I also am disconnected from this because
Mhm.
of my nervous system and my executive functioning deficits. And
Yes.
so you by saying it can be anything and everything, but if you don't know, that just means find time to work and reflect and maybe watch something or go get a massage and intentionally check in with your body with what you like so then when you do the 3 minute game you can say, you know what, actually, I would love you just to rub my shoulder or
Yes.
caress my cheek, whatever. It doesn't matter. And that's
Amen.
what the whole point is. And I love that you also amplify that it's not a space to surrender somebody else to be the navigator. This is about you
Mm.
reclaiming your sexuality within your relationship, becoming a team, not a double one-sided, right? Like and that is a very powerful dynamic.
It's incredibly powerful. And so, two things. One, there is a video on YouTube of a
Oh,
whole
there
slew of
is.
folks playing. And I encourage folks to watch
Oh,
this. It is at so many of Betty's trainings, okay, around the world. Most of these folks are European, and it is lovely to see the clever ways that they are asking for touch. This is totally non sexual touch, but it is revolutionary. And then let me get to the second question because this totally
sorry, my
amplifies what you were
impulsivity. I
saying. Oh
completely
no, I
interrupted you.
wanted you to, but I was like, I need everybody to know that there's two pieces to this. So the first question is, how do you want to be touched for 3 minutes by me, right? Now, what is beautiful is the other person, yes, can take as long as they want to think about it. Okay. Then the person giving the touch, the person in the service role gets to decide if they are willing to do this thing. So what do they need to be most comfy? What does everybody need to be most comfy?
Love it.
At trainings, they will always say, is there anything you could do to be 10% more comfy this morning?
Mm,
Anything that you could do that would make you 10% more comfy. Then, as you are playing this game, it is absolutely okay for all my ADHDers out there to say, may I have a pause? Okay, if you find your brain wandering off, you are no longer embodied, say, pause. Then, even if you need to then ask for deeper pressure, totally okay. Lighter pressure, totally okay. Can you focus more on my right ear? Totally okay. For my ADHDers to be able to move
hmm
inside of that container, great. Great. Okay. This is not a time for you to go, well, that's no longer pleasurable. So I'm just going to tolerate and endure. No, this is for you. And it is a beautiful, beautiful practice. And it's just 3 minutes. And yet I know that can feel like an eternity to my ADHDers. Okay. So that's the first question. You take turns asking
hmm
and you take turns being in service and acceptance. Then, second question is this: how do you want to touch me for 3 minutes?
Mm,
Interesting, interesting question.
yeah.
And you know, Leanne, when my people with vulvas are asked this question by a person with a penis, they think to themselves, I have no idea. And also, you have never asked me that before. I have no idea what to just do with a male body for my pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other day, my client and I talked about this idea of, through her own story, she had experienced a lot of scary phallic. Okay, a lot of penises coming at her, right? The same narrative that you were saying before of men only want one thing. Okay, so we
Yeah.
talked about, with the consent of her penis owning husband, what it would look like if, for her taking, she said, hmm, will you stand in the middle of the room and may I just explore your naked body for my pleasure? May I touch you curiously, like a curious little squirrel, pretending you're a tree? May I come up to your penis and sniff it and touch it and lift it and explore the crinkles in your scrotum? Okay? May I just
Love this right
approach
now.
the phallic on my terms? May I get near while you hold still? And for so many of us who have just had the erect, penetrative penis coming at us, this can be a reclamation, my friends. It can be playful, it can
Mhm.
be silly. So many people with a penis also have never had their flaccid penis just adored. And so it's really cool. So, what we would say in this instance is the person doing the action is in consensual taking. And the person standing there is just consensually allowing their bodies to be touched. They have set the limit. Okay, so maybe they've said, yes, I will stand in the middle of the room. And again, I encourage everybody to go watch the videos on YouTube. It's wonderful to watch this negotiation happen. Yes, I'll stand there in the middle of the room. And you can observe, I would just appreciate it if you didn't touch my penis because that feels a little too much right now, but look all you want. You can touch my butt, you can touch my back, all this types of
Mhm.
stuff, but that feels a little too much. Great. Negotiation is important here. At no point is anyone doing anything that they're not 100% just juicy okay with. All right. So then
Mm.
we explore, we take for our pleasure. Okay, this is a direct route to pleasure. For 3 minutes, it's done. We say thank you. The person who is allowing says you're welcome. And what's really juicy in the allowing is you're like, wow, I'm quite the gift. I'm really cool. They just explored my body for 3 whole minutes for their joy. And we get to check out for some of my ADHDers. This is a sweet,
Yeah.
sweet moment. All right. When you can just allow, your brain can be anywhere, my friend,
Yeah.
anywhere. You can be on grocery list. You can be wherever. You are the gift. And for
Mhm.
my ADHDers, this is the sweetest moment in the world because so much of culture is like, come on, focus. Come on, focus.
Yeah.
And in this moment, you are fully enough.
Mm.
You are the gift. Just here.
Yeah.
Just here.
And
Someone
that,
else is exploring for their pleasure. Yeah, go ahead.
no, and I'm just thinking to myself, and that moment, while it's so liberating and empowering, it's also so overwhelming too for a lot of us who have never been given that space, the permission within ourselves, within the environment that we're in. Because, like you just said, we live in this world where it's just like go, 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 do, do, do. And, you have to be attentive, and this is how it's supposed to look. And so that extra layer, that process is a very deep, vulnerable one. And so as you were explaining it, like I'm excited. I'm doing my 3 minute game with my husband tonight. I'm freaking excited. And like I'm thinking too, because you know, I one of the things that, and maybe this amplifies this conversation we're having as well, is I said to my husband, if your dick didn't work anymore, what would
Mhm,
pleasure look like with me,
mhm,
with you? What would it look
mhm.
like? And it was a very stumpy question. And again, it reinforced this idea that we've never been given ourselves space to just think. It's like going back to what you talked about driver's ed. And I loved the analogies you used because what you're doing with those is you're placing this normalization. Like we can see intimacy just as, quote, normal and acceptable if we use the language and we reinforced it. And I really love that you're holding space for that because it's really helpful to challenge the nerves, the taboo feeling that comes up for us as we're having this conversation. And I'm just so happy to know. And I have to watch this video. I'm gonna have to get the link from you because I'm now super excited about this. That like for everyone listening, this is a great opportunity. Like, oh my gosh,
Can I share a personal story of playing
a
this game?
hundred
Because my
percent.
husband and I
Feel
use
free
it
if
all the
you feel
time. Okay.
comfortable. Yeah.
Yes. So let's catch up on the story. So I was married to that man who is now my co-parent, who is now happily gay for a decade. And then my life fell apart, blah, blah, blah. And then I did all this work on myself. This is what led to this work. And then flew out to San Diego, California for a work trip and met and fell in love with my now husband who lives here in Central Virginia with me. So now all is like a really beautiful,
Awesome.
redemptive,
Yeah.
juicy love story. He is the reason this business began because people were asking me about this work, and he was like, babe, I really think that you could do this. Not even think, I know you could do this.
Wow.
So it's been really neat how much of a part of the story it has been. He even went to a Wheel of Consent, like a pro training with me in September of last year. And so this game, this 3 minute game, has literally been foundational to our relationship. I was going to say sexual relationship, and it's not true
Yeah.
because this game truly puts us back in to our bodies when we've gotten out of sync, when we find that one of us is martyring a little bit, one of us is being a little bit of a service provider, one of us is feeling a little bit taken advantage of, which happens all the time in long-term partnership, friends.
Yeah.
Like all the time. This is just the dynamics of human relationship. We fall into patterns that were set by our parents or those around us in culture. It's just what
Yeah.
happens. And so when we find, uh-oh, we got stuck in that rut again, 3 minute game is something we go back to. So a couple weeks ago, he said, hey, babe, I'd really like to request a night to play. Okay, this is what we call our sexual scheduled times. We do not say we would like to schedule sex. We say we'd like to schedule a time to play.
Yeah.
And any of us can make a bid for that request at any time. We sit down, we look at the calendar. So we put something on the calendar for a Tuesday. It's my admin day. And I was like, I think I could be done at 4. We do not do late in the evening because we're too tired by then. And we didn't have my daughter. She was with my gay ex-husband. It was a great time. He said, I want to have some playtime in the living room. Great. We both asked for what we needed. Okay. We blackened out the room. But his request was to start with a completely non sexual version of the 3 minute game. It was beautiful. It was healing. We asked for things that we had never asked for before because it put us into our bodies. What we wanted and needed that day was different than what we wanted and needed the day before. It's not even worth you would need to do no work
Yeah.
prior to. You just need to set aside the time to play. So we played 3 minute game. What is amazing when we come back to female sexuality again is that for many people inside of female bodies, for the majority of vulva owners, arousal precedes desire.
Mhm.
When we can become these feeling human beings again, when we're not driving, just like Liam was saying, like we got to go, go, go. When we can have a moment, when it's just 3 minutes, where we're considering, oh my goodness, my cheek being touched, that does feel good. Ooh, I am starting to feel some of the effects, the scientific facts and feelings of arousal. Then desire does start to creep online. So this is what we did. We played a whole round of the 3 minute game. How would you like to be touched for 3 minutes? Blah, blah, blah. Played that 3 minutes. Thank you. You're welcome. The other person asked, how would you like to be touched for 3 minutes? Then we asked the other question, how do you want me to touch you for 3 minutes? It was so great. Lovely, lovely, lovely. We wrapped that one up and he goes, do you want to play again? I said, yes. And that time we took it into genitals were on the table. Okay.
Mm.
We kept off penetration. And this is what made me think of it. When you were saying to your husband, what would we do if your dick didn't work? Right? What do we do? So many of us have not considered all of the ways in which we can play
Yeah.
that have nothing to do with penis in vagina intercourse, which
Yeah.
is what most of us got in some health class in sixth grade.
Yeah.
Okay, there is so much more to do. So we played an entire second round. I think we even upped the timer to 5 minutes. It
I
was
love it.
glorious. What you can start to feel in your body is literally your sympathetic nervous system going offline. Okay, and our kink and BDSM friends would teach us about this thing called drop. Okay, you're
Mhm.
literally feeling this like morphine like drug. Friends, it was so incredible that after all 4 rounds of the second time were complete, we just lay there and we were like, um, do we even have sex? Like we were both in a trance. In a trance. Do we even need orgasm? Do we even need any form of penetration? We
Wow.
literally just lay there in each other's arms, thinking that was phenomenal that we made happen, okay, in our living room in Central Virginia on a Tuesday. This was
Yeah.
not, nothing special happened. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't do anything. We just slowed down. And I know for ADHDers that can say, like, we slowed down in bite-sized chunks. There's
As
still
long as there's some
changes.
stimulation there, we can handle
Mhm,
that. And we
mhm.
just need a certain level of stim. We're good.
Right? Just give us the stim. And it's there. So it is a slowing down, but again, yes, the stim's there. The timer's going off, right? It's not just this like, where is this never ending? Nope, there's a timer. Right. And it always feels
Yeah.
like, whoa, but that's also hot. I love to teach the erotic equation, which is attraction plus obstacle equals excitement. And so when there's
Mhm.
an obstacle of this timer's going off and you were just feeling like, oh my God, I could have this happen forever. The timer goes off.
Mhm.
It's like, darn it. And that's such a fun feeling. And so
Yeah.
I just wanted to say this, yes, when we're trying to explore what could happen outside of just a penis and a vagina, this is a great game to play.
Yeah, and I think also what I love is that when you had said after you guys did your 4 rounds and then you sat there and was like, what do we do now? You also are learning to disconnect pleasure equal orgasm. Pleasure can actually finally be something other than orgasm. And it's such a closeted like idea that traps us so much. And I think one of the biggest things that excites me from this idea of this 3 minute game is I gotta be honest, confidence is sexy as hell to me. And I was telling my husband this last night. Confidence is wonderful because he doesn't know what he likes because he was robbed of the same things I was robbed, right? He doesn't have confidence. And I'm struggling because I'm like, I just want you to be confident. What I like about this 3 minute game is that when you're showing up, you are asking for something for yourself. You're trusting yourself. That's fucking sexy. That is sexy that you're showing up, you're vulnerable, whatever it is. You're allowing yourself the space and to trust me with that space. Now that's sexy.
Sexy. And to that point, I had clients the other day who were playing this game. She's my primary client, and her partner could not figure out why he needed to ask for what he wanted. He was like, "This is about your pleasure. You're working on with your pleasure with Lauren. What? I don't get it." And
Mm-hmm.
she said, "If you don't learn to ask me for what you want, I will continually sound like the selfish one. And I will continually feel bad for asking for what I want. And so until we can both be human beings who ask for what we want and stand in that integrity, it's going to be awkward forever." And he went, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." And so then has been asking for what he wants. And you know what it's doing? It's setting her free to be a woman who gets to desire.
Yep.
Because you're right, it is so freaking sexy.
Yeah. And I'm going to piggyback off of that because you just hit, and I felt my tears going. I'll be completely honest with you because this is just so crazy how the stars align here. We're having this conversation. And I just had this deep conversation with my husband last night.
Goosebumps all over
I
my body.
said
Goosebumps.
the same thing to him. I said, until you are able to lean in and say, I want this or I'm interested in this, it's a me problem. I'm the problem because you'd be fine with what we've been doing for X amount of time. You'd be okay with it. I'm not. So I became the problem. And that's not sexy. I need you to be an active participant. I want you to be curious. I want you to want this. And I know he does. But again, he doesn't know how. And what you had just described with that woman, like that really hit a nail on the head for me. That was very, very, very deep for me because that's exactly what I came to yesterday with my husband. I can't be the problem. We have to be the unit that wants to discover something different, no different than us being the unit and the team of being parents, being homeowners in our life. This cannot be any different if we want to see success.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. That was deep. That was deep stuff. Now, I'm going to do a complete shift because I know I've seen you on news channels doing some conversations. I know a lot of viewers, listeners are parents, and we've talked about sex ed. I would do myself and my listeners a disservice if I didn't ask you to guide us a little bit on some advice, approaches for us parents navigating sex ed conversations. When is the right time? How do we navigate this? What do we do as parents for our children? How do we break the pattern of shame and guilt if we can?
My favorite. Yes, I love this shift because,
Full circle.
what's interesting too is that I love in books like Dr. Jack Moran's The Erotic Mind, at the end, literally talks about young children and adolescents and how anyone who has young people in their midst is a sex educator. Okay. And if we cannot acknowledge that through our behaviors, we are teaching sex, okay, then we might as well just walk out the door. Okay,
Yeah.
listen, even if you don't think you're doing anything, you're doing something. One of the first questions I ask my clients when we are doing that timeline is, what do you remember about your parents' intimacy, romance, how they touched, how they played? What do you remember, if anything, them talking about their affection for each other? Maybe their sex as you became a teen? Yeah, no, majority of my clients have no memories of anything. They'll tell me my parents didn't even touch. Okay, so guess what? You're a sex educator. So let's talk about how I view that we can be having these conversations.
Mhm.
This is going to be like high level. So I do encourage anyone who wants more. I have a course on my website that's very affordable called Sex Ed Prep for Parents
Oh,
that
that's
walks you
awesome.
through like 7 different
Cool.
modules full of the stuff you could ask yourself and the questions you could engage with a co-parent or maybe your own parents if they're like being childcare providers, all this type of stuff. So when they're little, we want to name it and claim it. When they are like infants to two, we want to be talking about all of the exactly perfect names for anatomy. Please, 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 if I can get you to learn anything today, stop using things like cookie and your wee wee. Use actual names for the genitalia. Research shows that perpetrators and harmers of children stay away from those children because they know they can accurately report. Something else that was hit on here today earlier is that children will often play sexually. It is called sex play, and it is totally normal and healthy. When we find it is not normal is when there is the presence of coercion or fear of a harsh response from an adult.
Interesting. That's really good to know. Because I know a
It is
lot of people struggle with this idea of what's normal
right.
versus not normal in what we're seeing our children do.
Yes. So please just hear me. When we are parenting our children, there are kind of four types of parenting that we all fall into. Negligent parenting, avoiding talking about these subjects at all. Indulgent parenting, I always think of the mean girl's mom, right? Who is just hyper indulgent, just wants to be the friend. Then there is authoritarian parenting, okay? All rules, no warmth. This is how it's going to be, kind of akin to what I grew up with, right? Your body belongs to God, this, also harmful. Then, what we have found that is the most scientific skill, and it's like, ooh, this can actually be a harmful way to parent, is authoritative parenting, which is high expectations, clear discussions, and also lots of warmth. So much warmth.
Happy
Open
mediums.
and ongoing conversations with our kids. So, no, I am not saying that from the time that your children are 2, they need to understand a penetrative intercourse, how babies are made type of thing. No, but these need to be ongoing and continual conversations. So, when they're little, those understandings of all of their body parts, then as they grow a little bit bigger, consent, 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 consent.
Yeah.
Bodies, right? An awareness of one's own body. What feels good and what feels bad. So many of us, when we've been changing a diaper or putting a little one in a bathtub, they will often play with their genitals because why? Because it feels good.
Of
And so
course.
being able to affirm and normalize their own touch on their own body and the difference between privacy and secrecy,
Yep.
vital that our children understand what is private is theirs, never bad, but something that gets to be theirs inside a private space. Bathtub, great place. Your own room, great place.
Yep.
Maybe out in the living room when all the family's over for Easter dinner, maybe
Not
not.
the best
Okay,
place.
but sharing that that is because it is a private thing, not a bad thing. It is a
Mhm.
private thing. And that can be so liberating for children to hear that gentle, you were saying this earlier, right? We hear the tone change. We hear the fear, the anxiety. No, no,
Yep.
no. With a soft voice, with a gentle voice can
Hmm.
be a total game
Yep.
changer. Okay. Then
Hmm.
talking about secrecy is also a beautiful thing, again, around elementary school, because that is when many family members, not strangers, we did our whole country a disservice where we were like stranger danger. No, most instances
Yeah.
of sexual harm are being done by someone your child knows.
Yeah.
And so we need to be very clear that we're talking about secrecy. We don't want secrets. Secrets are harmful. Okay. Secrets, no one should ever tell you that you can't tell a parent about something that's happening with your body. Nope, nope. Right? You are always going to have warmth with me, not a harsh response, warmth with me.
That's a
And then as
powerful
they
message. Yeah.
so powerful. Then as they move into middle school, then they are really truly learning how to start, continue, and end relationships, which is fascinating. They are learning it in a relational realm. They are learning it with people that they are interested in, both romantically
Mhm.
and friendships, right? We see a lot of mean girls stuff in that middle school era. And it is a really, really good time to be having conversations with your teens and your middle schoolers about what does make for a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Now, again, keep in mind, you're a sex educator. So if you have a fractured relationship with a co-parent that your child is witnessing, they are going to laugh you off. If you are trying to have a conversation with your middle schooler about healthy relationships and you and a partner are
Yep.
awkwardly fighting in front of your child, they're going to laugh in your face, as
It's
they
like the
should.
do as I say, do as I say, not as I do,
As I
right?
do,
Yeah.
right? So work with someone. Okay, there are plenty of people out there, but you owe it to your kids to work with someone. Then moving into high school is when children start to want to explore some form of sexual interaction. But what I tell parents all the time is that usually when a child is engaging in sexual behaviors, it is not sex that they are hungry for, it is touch. So, what we find happens is
Ooh,
as our
yeah.
children go through puberty, we touch them less because we as parents start to see them as sexual beings. And so we sexualize. So we stop giving our teenagers as many hugs. When research looks at why kids initiated penetrative intercourse in high school, do you know what they were starved for? Touch, affection, kindness.
Oh my God, you're making me like get teary eyed. Oh my God, I've never cried on a podcast episode before in my life. But like, wow, that is deep because, oh my gosh. Whoo-hoo. Sorry, Lauren. But that I have a 12-year-old and I remember I had my sexual debut at 14 and that just hit. I never got the touch. I never got the affection. It got even worse when I became older. My daughter is in that era. The hugs are less. Like I'm hearing myself now. Oh my God, I just want to hug my kid. That was such a needed reminder that we miss touch. We're humans and affection is what we're looking for, not the sexual debut. I mean, maybe some are. I don't want to generalize, but wow.
To affirm really deeply that I am proud of you for meeting your human need in the way that you could. We need touch to survive. And our children, and you in that instance, did such a good job to get your needs met. Those behaviors that our teens are using and that you used are beautiful and they are wise and they are intuitive. There is nothing wrong with it at all. And if we can raise a generation that is well hugged and well touched in safe ways, wherein they get the opportunity to choose when they make their sexual debut, because that's truly everything they want and crave. Is that that form of touch is exactly what they want, not just something that will meet a human need in that instance and get them closer to another human body. Then that is the egalitarian and healed society that I want to live in. And I want our kids to know that there is safe touch at home, or that there is safe touch with their best friends, and that we can have cuddle parties that are consenting. And that the only way to get touch is not through a sexual encounter that you are somewhat consenting to. And that pleasure can be for you, not this thing that you have to give in order to get close to another body. What research shows us is that the actual desire for some form of penetrative intercourse usually comes around the age of 21 years old. And so many people feel some sort of shame for going through and the high school not having had a sexual encounter. And when they hear that, when they hear that developmentally, the age to crave a sexual encounter that involves some form of penetration is not until 21, it is both freeing and then sometimes heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I want you to know, and the audience to know, there will never be touch of shame that comes out of these lips, because we are so wise
Mm,
and we will heal our bodies and we will get what we need.
that is very powerful. And it's full circle. You know, we started this conversation off talking about us as adults, as women, right? And then we brought it back to the children and how do we change the patterns? How do we show up? How do we challenge it? How do we create spaces so this doesn't repeat itself? And one of the things, and I'm definitely going to be putting it in the description below, your course, the workshop you just mentioned before, you know, because again, if we as women, vulva owners, have this experience, this journey, and now we have children, daughters, sons, doesn't matter, and you're struggling, this is the path that you have the resources here to unlearn, relearn, cry. I fucking cried on my podcast today, people. Like, I did not see that one coming. This is just like all circling for me. It's okay. It's needed for that
Needed.
empowerment. Everything that we talked about today. I feel so empowered to be a woman right now, believe it or not, because it's like, wow, the opportunities that
Yes.
we have. We can't rewrite history. We can sure as hell rewrite how we move forward today.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes, we
Lauren.
can.
Thank you so much for being here today. I didn't know where we were going, but I swear this felt like a mini friggin' therapy session.
It was amazing.
I hope it was for all of you listeners as well. Uh, Thank you for spending time with us today, giving us your journey, your knowledge, your vulnerability. I have definitely, I'm going to be walking away with so much today. So thank you so much. Can you just let everyone know where they can find you if they want more of you?
Yes. Yes. First, come find me on Instagram. I am at sex_ed_for_you. I need to type all of that in because I am currently shadow banned. And whenever you listen or watch this, I might be shadow banned again. So you're going to need to type it all in. I'll say it again: sex_ed_for_you, all spelled completely out. Then, if you had something resonate in your belly today and you'd like to talk with me more about the holistic and embodied way that I work with folks, you can go to sexedforyou.com/free consult. And then if you're looking for that course, go to sexedforyou.com, and then there's a little drop down menu at the top that says courses, I think. Maybe it says services. I don't know what it says. It's easy to find. It's called Sex Ed Prep for Parents. Again, it is a 7-module course. It takes you through building sexual values. It takes you through your own mini timeline exercise. I teach the 3-minute game in there and how to even play it with your children in a consenting way so that they can learn the difference between the types of touch that they want from an early age. I have so many of my favorite books on sexuality, books that you can fill your bookshelves with so that you and your partner and your co-parents and your children can feel equipped and empowered.
That is awesome. And I'm going to put all that in the description below. And don't you worry, I've learned the stupid algorithm. We are not going to get shadow banned with any of these collabs when I
No.
pop them in. No, 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 no. I'm not. That's my empowerment. I've learned. I'm not going to let people silent me. I
No.
went too long being silenced. I'm not doing it. So thank you again, Lauren. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was wonderful. And until next time, everybody, please be well and remember you are deserving and just lean into that empowerment. This episode, whew, thank you again, Lauren.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks so much for joining me for today's episode. And if you enjoyed what you heard or something really resonated with you, it would mean the world if you subscribed, shared it with a friend, or left a review. That's how we keep these conversations going and growing. And until next time, take care of yourself and keep showing up in ways that matter to you, but more importantly, work with your brain and not against it.